Hello, welcome to Mirador TV. My name is Max Hurd. I'm here. We're streaming here from the White Hart Hotel in Lewis. It's a lovely day out today. It's a little bit of history for you to get started. Here, the White Hart Hotel, very rich in history, really interesting place. This is where Thomas Payne wrote The Rights of Man from, or started to get the ideas from. And Thomas Paine is very popular over in America, not too much here. He actually started the American Revolution, which gained them independence from us, so they weren't a monarchy anymore. So that's a little bit about Lewis, the White Hart Hotel where we are right now. It's a beautiful day out today, so for now. It's going to start raining in a minute, which is annoying.
Yeah. High winds today, apparently, as
High
well.
winds, yes.
That always takes the edge off. But for the moment, it's rather nice out there.
It is rather nice, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Max, tell the people who you are, what we are, how we are, and what we're going to do.
Well, I'm doing pretty good today. I am Max Hurd. I am working here at Mirador TV as an apprentice. It started as a college placement for media, and I've got a job out of it so far, so everything seems to be going pretty well. And today we are going to be looking behind the headlines. We're going to be looking and flipping through the newspaper and talking about what we see in there. How long does this show go for? About hour and a half?
Yes,
to
it
2
goes
hours?
to 11:30. We don't have to go to 11:30, but if we've got lots of interesting stuff, we would take up to 11:30 this morning. And quite often what happens is that the hustle and bustle of the bar in which we are, and we just invite people to come in, is sometimes people come in at 10 past 11. At 11 o'clock, we're thinking, well, we just might stop early. And then suddenly a hustle and bustle that keeps it going. Okay, Max, then here is something to... Well, let's just look at what happened yesterday, because the Queen's speech, which the Queen didn't make for the first time in 50 some odd years, was made by Prince Charles because she was feeling a little bit under the weather. And it gave the government's legislative program for the year. So that's what that was all about. But the one thing that it did do was the pictures showed the pomp and ceremony of our Parliament. And you just mentioned lady that was in here a little earlier mentioned 1264, which is when the Battle of Lewes took place. And the Battle of Lewes is when Simon de Montfort, who headed up the barons, defeated Henry III, who was fighting for the divine right of kings. And I think it took place in May, but the very next day there was a parliament. And although today's parliament wouldn't bear much resemblance to that parliament, nonetheless, it was the first step in the road to democracy. So my question to you is, as a young man looking at the pomp and ceremony, the colorfulness, is that worth the system that we've got with the royal family, which is filthy rich, and actually seems to be able to get away with an awful lot that the rest of us wouldn't?
Well, the thing people don't actually ask is, why is the royal family so rich? Because we give them money through taxes. It's our money that we give to them for them to do basically nothing. They just have ceremonies, give a speech a couple times a year, once around this time of year, and one in Christmas. They don't really do a whole lot. I mean, the Queen isn't really allowed to do a whole lot anyway. The royal family in general isn't. They're actually very restricted in what they can and can't do. So they are essentially useless.
She meets the Prime Minister regularly.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. He goes down to the palace, and I'm not quite sure how frequently, whether it's once a month or once a week or whatever. but he has an audience with the Queen, and he brings her up to date with the things that he's doing. Because even though constitutionally we can't follow, if she said, turn this on its head, Prime Minister, he would say, yes, Your Majesty, and bugger off, Your Majesty, because we're not going to listen to you. This is our program. But nonetheless, she is interested as the head of state to know what's going on. So he actually briefs her and will say, today we're actually going to say bring in the departure from the EU bill or whatever. And it is said that probably she is the best informed head of state anywhere in the world. First of all, because she's always there, unlike a lot of other heads of state who are there for four years, and that's it. But secondly, because her duties at home are somewhat limited, she travels the world to what was formerly the Empire and is now the Commonwealth, and that she is extremely well informed about those countries and peoples that now make up, I suppose, still the Commonwealth, but this loose association of nations tied to the British Crown. So
what is it she actually does, though? What does she do? She just goes and talks to people, but that seems very vague. Like, what is it she does? She doesn't influence anything, it seems like.
No, but constitutionally, she would have to. She approves legislation, and before she actually signs it, she takes the view she should know what it's all about. And behind closed doors, it is known that she may well have some reservations about various things, and she will talk to the Prime Minister, and she'll say, Boris, I'm not quite sure how informed she is, but Mr. Prime Minister probably. Mr. Prime Minister, I notice that in this piece of legislation, or that you've said that this has happened in the House of Commons. I wonder if I could just ask you to explain that and so on. And it probably is, as we were just saying, it's nice to have a sounding board. I mean, when you come in here, it's nice for me to sort of say, hey, Max, I've just read about this, and this is my view. What's your view? And sometimes getting together on a consensus it makes for a more powerful approach to things.
Just to be clear, I don't represent my generation. I'm completely opposed to my generation. I hate my generation. It's awful. Gen Z is the worst. God, I hate them so much, and I'm a part of them. I'm ashamed to say. But no, I'm nothing like what young people are like.
No, but you are young.
Yeah.
And you would take a view.
Yeah.
I mean, to you, the last World War, World War II is just it's World War II. Nothing about it. You're just told about it and so on and so forth. Whereas to me, it is very alive. Down to silly things like it is said by many people that the diet that we had during the Second World War, and for those years afterwards, where we were in a position of recovery, because this country was devastated. I mean, it lost all its cash for all intents and purposes by paying back the help that it got.
Okay, I actually have an interesting question for you. Then, bringing that up, you've lived for a while.
Yes, a little while.
A little while. In your lifetime, what period of time has been the hardest and the worst?
Well,
on
a
think, country scale, not just personally.
I think that this country was bankrupt in the mid 1970s. We had a Labour government for quite some time. The unions had got a hold of all industry. Really was unionised. we could not have done this in the television industry in the 1960s and the 1970s.
Why not?
Because the unions would have said, where's your card? And you would have said, well, I don't have a card.
You got a license.
When you actually, it was that whole thing is, you can't get a job until you actually got a union card, and you can't get a union card until you got a job. But they were very, very powerful, and they I mean, I'll give you an example. When I was working for CNBC in London towards the end of my career. A young girl came in, and she was carrying the tripod. She and a cameraman were going to go out on a shoot, and she was, oh well, the Thatcherism did this and Thatcherism did that, and so on and so forth. So I waited for a moment, and then I said, "Put the tripod down," and I said, "Before Thatcher, you would not have been permitted to carry that tripod, because you don't have the right union ticket. And as a consequence, what you and I can now do together is it took 10 or 12 people because they all had to have a union card and for specific things."
So it used to be even more bureaucratic.
Oh, it's dreadful. Absolutely.
Oh my God, I thought
dreadful.
it was terrible
Yeah.
now.
I mean, we are able to have a great deal of flexibility in what we do. In those days, you had no flexibility whatsoever. You had to do what the union said, and the union were all powerful. And if the union decided to go on strike, everybody had to go on strike. The number of times that you found television grinding to a halt were numerous. Now, I think that there is a case for perhaps slightly stronger unions that we've got now. I mean, Margaret Thatcher did; she destroyed them, and she took up the cudgel on behalf of free enterprise. What she said was, owners must own, managers must manage, unions can look after the comfort and so on of the workforce. But that's where it's got to be. The unions cannot manage. That's not their role. But also, of course, we had a huge number of industries that were belonged to the Crown. British Rail, the railways belonged. The buses belonged.
Wait, the buses were the buses were run by the government?
Yes.
I thought it was just the trains. I don't know.
And actually, in 1948 or thereabouts, all long haulage vehicles were owned by the government as well.
Well, like lorries?
Yes,
Really?
British Road Services, I think they're called, BRS or BRM. So it was a different culture in those days. But I mean, the role of the monarch was that we remained a constitutional monarchy. And my view, constitutional monarchy, I think that it is the best form of government that you could possibly have, because it's almost impossible to overthrow.
I think that's the reason that the monarchy is bad, because it's almost impossible to overthrow.
Let me put it this way. Having travelled to a good many countries where there has been a violent change in government, you don't want to be part of that. You don't ever want to experience it.
I also don't want to be tyrannized by someone who I can't overthrow.
No.
That seems like a pretty negative as well.
Right. Keep your hat on and let Mr. Putin have his way, and you'll soon find out what it's like to be under.
But he's not voted in properly, is
Who?
he? Putin.
No, he's not.
No.
Yeah, but if he came here,
Almost like a.
you would have no say in whether he was the boss or not. He's the boss, and that's it.
Why would the same not apply if the monarchy turned?
Well, because the monarchy is the symbolic head of a tier of government, which, I mean, for instance, the Queen is the head of the armed forces. which means that it's almost impossible for the armed forces to be turned against the state. But how many times do you read in the news that particularly in South America, is that the colonels take over? The colonels use the army, and they actually force a change of government. That can't happen here. Because the one arm, well, she would actually be overturning herself, so hardly likely. The structure of governments and government here is such that all legislation has to go through a tier system, so it is looked at.
I know, but what's stopping one bad monarch? All it takes is one, I think. All it takes is one for just to change the system. Well, we can't go against them. It's a constitutional monarch.
Our head of state can't change the system. That's the beauty of it. Quite often, what happens in other countries is that the president. Well, Russia is a prime example, where the president or the head of state can do what the hell he likes. Mm-hmm. There are no checks and balances. In the United States, the president can do more or less what he likes for 4 years, and then he has to go back to the electorate. There are many instances in some of the smaller countries in the world where the head of state might well be a general in charge of the armed forces. Try telling him that he can't do something. It's actually the freedoms that we enjoy. Now, you're right to challenge me on this, and I'm giving you my point of view. There are a lot of people that would agree with you. This isn't the right way to do things. What I would say is the challenge is you can't just create a vacuum. You can't say that's bad, so do away with it. You've got to know what you're going to put in its place. And so putting something in its place is you've got to know that it can work. And you've got to know that in many ways it works for the betterment of society. In other words, the constituent parts of any given country or nation. And we tend to want to have the freedoms that we've got. And to some extent, if you change it, some of those freedoms would disappear, according to Keith.
Okay. All right. Well, I do think that the monarchy may go within my lifetime.
Well, it may well do. I personally think that what will happen is it'll be reformed. I don't think it'll go.
I don't like the monarch, but I'm coming from a different perspective from my generation. I think it could turn tyrannical, but what a lot of Generation Z, my generation, think is that the monarchy is old, therefore it's racist, therefore it should go, which is ridiculous.
The monarchy is racist?
Same with statues being racist. But I'm not coming from that place. I'm saying it could become tyrannical, but a lot of my generation, that's what I'm hearing from them.
Yeah. Well, actually, I have to say that what you think at 16 quite often is different from what you think at 26.
Yeah.
And at 26 is different to what you think at 36. And what you think at 36 is different when you retire. You change with age and background and experience. But you're bringing up very interesting points of view. And it gives us a chance to take a look and dissect these a little bit. Now, we've been talking for a little while. Why don't you actually find something that we can take a look at?
Okay, or one of these?
If you actually go to down there, share and video file, and there are just a few things there that we've stored, including your own thing. Because all we're doing at the moment is taking a rest, if you like, is the bottom right icon. Click on that, because that in some ways is an anti-war item in a very mild sort of way.
this one, 1 minute and 29 seconds. All right. Well, we'll play this. It's a minute and a half.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the seas? And how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? And how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Right, there we are. That's just a little statement of perhaps a mild anti-war statement. I am not a pacifist in the sense that I believe that nobody should lift a gun. I recognize that conflict is part of human nature, of human life. But when it gets out of hand, as indeed it has in Ukraine now, then it's time for us to look back and say, what's the point of war? Now, you asked me what was the in my lifetime, what was the worst period? Right.
In general, not in like your personal life. Like, what was the worst time period to have been?
Well, in my view, it was the mid 1970s.
Right.
The country, Britain, was bankrupt. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Dennis Healey, who was actually, as politicians go, not a bad sort of chap. But the country had got itself into the grip of unions. It couldn't do business because it wasn't competitive. It was losing all sorts of things. The shipping industry ground to a halt. The coal mining industry. We were busy digging coal out of the ground, but we couldn't sell it because of union restrictions. We were too expensive on a world stage. But what happened was that we stopped operating, and the country needed some money. And normally, if a country gets itself into a problem, it goes to the International Monetary Fund, and it says, "Look, we need either to borrow or to be bailed out." Dennis Healey left and got as far as Heathrow to go to the International Monetary Fund and say, "Look, Britain is it's bankrupt for all intents and purposes, so we need some help." And he got a call from his office saying, "You needn't bother to go, Mr. Chancellor, because the IMF have made it quite clear that they will not, under present circumstances, lend us money. In other words, they want to see reform, that this money would be paid back. And as they see it, it would be just good money after bad." So
what caused that? Was it a financial crash? Like, what happened for times to get so bad?
Because we ceased to be a productive nation, and there were other nations coming out of post-war world that were beginning to motor very well. The Americans, of course, have never ever understood socialism the way that we have. It's very interesting because I was with a group of journalists. I went back to British Columbia. When would it be? 1980 somewhere. and we were taken to see the Prime Minister of British Columbia and have a chat. And one of the journalists in the group said, "You don't seem to have much social housing," and so on. And the Prime Minister bristled, and he said, and he pointed, and he said, "If you think that in this part of the world we are ever going to have the sort of social housing and council houses that you've got another thing coming." But we were unable to sustain any sort of lifestyle, pay our debts, and the country was more or less paralyzed, and because of bad practices. For instance, we had a fairly healthy motor industry, mostly in Coventry, and it was known that on a night shift, that people would go in through the front door and clock in, and walk through the factory and out of the back door and go to the pub for the evening. But they were being paid for non-producing the cars.
God, if the issue back then was not being productive, what the hell are we doing today? What is going to happen in a couple of years from now?
Yeah, well, if you actually want to make a comparison, it was 20 times worse then than it is now.
Do you think now it's going to be worse? Do you think it's going to get worse soon than it was in the 70s?
No, I don't think. Well, I pray we never get back to the 70s. However,
were there like rolling blackouts back then? I've heard something about that.
Yes, there were. I mean, I'd newly come back from Canada, and I was working in media in the Midlands. And there was a petrol shortage, and it went on ration. And we were actually given coupons because, being media, we were considered an essential industry. But every other industry had to. It went down to a 3-day week. A lot of people didn't have the wherewithal to keep businesses going. There were bodies in the streets. Because the undertakers had gone on strike, and so bodies were left in the streets in body bags. I mean, how the hell we didn't all sort of disappear from infections and fevers and so on? So I have no idea. So it was a very, very bad time, and the country was paralysed because the unions wouldn't brook any reform whatsoever. So you actually found...
is that why the unions got their powers taken away?
Well, it wasn't so much that they had their powers taken away, but Margaret Thatcher, who took over in 1979, I think, she won her first election, on the basis that she got to curb union power, and she did so through the legislative process. But the big confrontation came with the miners, and to this day there are people who actually say, that she actually crushed the miners, and well, she did, but they were determined that they would carry on with some of their old practices, and she said, "You can't do that. If the mines are to continue to operate, they've got to pay their way. The government can't keep giving subsidies, and for a thing where custom and practice and work practices are so archaic." And I mean, I just pointed out in this industry what we had to do, some of the union restrictions. I was working in Northern Ireland at the time. I had to belong to 3 unions. I had to belong to Equity, the actors union, to read the news. I had to belong to the National Union of Journalists to report the news. And I had to belong to, I think it was AFTRA, or ACTRA, I can't remember, ACTT, it was, right. Association of Cinematic and something technical. And I had to do that because I wrote scripts. If I didn't belong to those 3 unions, I couldn't. I could only do one of those functions. So it got really quite silly.
So it's less bureaucratic today than it used to be.
Well, bureaucracy, unfortunately, will always raise its head. For instance, one of the things that, and you bring us back to the modern day, one of the things that was put before the House yesterday as being legislation in the making is that a lot of red tape will be actually cut. So, whereas, for instance, you might well, if you want to set up a little business, is at the moment you have to follow all sorts of things. It costs you money, and then you have to post various reports throughout the year, and all the things which are not wealth producing. And if you're a small operation, to take away from actually you actually making money. So there is some effort to do away with that, but we are nowhere near as red tape bound as we were way back in the 1970s. It was a dreadful time. Right. Okay. Now,
On a more cheerful note, something else.
Well, it depends on any given day. One of the things that I see is that Rebecca Vardy and Colleen Rooney, their trial goes to the court today, and apparently it's a libel case.
Where is it?
It's in London, I think.
I was going to say it's not Lewis.
They're wags, of course. They're footballers' wives.
Yeah,
and they've had a go at each other.
Wags.
Yeah,
I've not heard that before.
Have you not heard it?
No.
It's wives of something.
So they're not at Lewis Court then, no?
Well, I don't know. They
Because
may well
there's-
be, because you were going to check at 10 o'clock
It's half time.
to see. It's now 10:30.
Well, yeah,
You want to see if you can find out?
here's the thing. There are 4 police officers on the stairs. There's 2 outside the White Hart Hotel. And there's more in the police car. There's about 10 police officers outside doing really nothing. They're just chatting and laughing, waiting for something
There's
to
a couple
happen.
here, you say?
Yeah, there's a couple outside just patrolling this bit of road.
Why don't you go and ask them what the case is?
No, they won't be allowed. They won't be allowed to say anything.
All right. You find out on the internet.
Yeah, I'll find out on the internet.
Because with that sort of police presence, there's obviously a pretty heavy case.
Yeah.
And it would be interesting to.
And there was a riot ban a minute ago as well. Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Okay. Well, you take 5 minutes to do that, and I will wax lyric about wags.
I've not heard that before. That's the first time I've actually heard that.
I forget what it's called. Wives. Basically.
Do you follow football?
Sorry.
Do you follow football?
I follow football the way that everybody else does, in the fact that it's tribal. I'm a fan of Aston Villa for reasons that my family were way back when part of the group that started it, started Aston Villa as a football club. I look at the results each Saturday, but I don't go to games.
I've never watched a game of football, even on TV. Never in my life.
Oh, really?
I've never been interested in any sports, really, not even Formula One. I just hate the commentary going, I just want to watch the sport.
Yeah.
I would go in person, but watching on TV is just not the same and very boring.
No, and actually, TV has become more powerful as far as sport is concerned. The reason that footballers are paid these huge salaries is because of the money that the viewing rights to many sporting events that are so huge. Television is paying such huge amounts of money that they can afford to do that. I'm not so sure that that's such a good thing, but How are we doing? Those who care about such things, it is at 10:30 on the 5th of the 5th, on the 11th of May, the 5th month, and the year is 2022, and a pretty tough year it's been so far. So Max is saying, who else is having?
I think I've actually got it right.
Right.
The thumbnail for this and the guy they're talking about, I just saw 10 minutes ago.
Right.
The guy who's.
Well, tell us about the case then. Yeah.
Give me a minute. I'm just going to quickly read over it quickly.
Okay, we'll give you. Then I'm just going to the footballers' wives. They all tend to see themselves as elite people because they've got so much money, and they have a go at each other. And in this particular case, it got pretty damn mean with the one wag, Mr. Vardy's wife or Mrs. Vardy, yelling and screaming at Miss Rooney, Mrs. Rooney, Colleen Rooney, until in the end they decided they'd fallen out so badly that they decided to sue each other on the basis that laws had been broken. This is what one commentator says is idiotic, frivolous, yet deliciously entertaining. The libel trial that can even rival Depp versus Heard for drama. And actually, that Heard is spelled exactly the way.
Yes, somewhere down the line, she's related to me because we got the exact same surname. Somewhere down the line. Which is annoying.
So I haven't watched. I haven't followed it in detail, but I do know. And when people like that with more money than sense do start to get really upset, then the any pretense that civility is dropped, and I'm trying hard not to talk to there rather than you, so that you can find out what's going on across the road.
No, that's fine.
The oh yes you did, oh no you didn't syndrome has kicked in to the footballers' wives with the name Vardy and Rooney. Even I know them, so they've got to be fairly prominent in football.
The judge at Lewis Crown Court is called Judge Stephen Money.
Aha!
Stephen Money. That's a
Right.
weird
And what
name.
case is he hearing?
The guy, it's something about a speeding offence, but that's clearly not what's going on because you don't need more than 10 police officers for a speeding offence.
Yeah.
This seems to be yesterday's court case, but I did see him here this morning. The guy who this article is about. This guy, Nick Till.
Right.
He was literally standing right outside the window like 15, 20 minutes ago.
Right. So it could be his case.
Not today. This was yesterday's case.
Right. All right. Well, keep going and see whether you can find today's case and what they're doing there. In the meantime, one of the things that the Tories are fuming because it's hard to read President Macron of France, who's just been elected president again for another 4 years. Macron has popped up and said, well, what we should do is we should have a nice little elite group, similar to
Have
to
what
the
as an
EU.
elite group?
Sorry?
Have what as an elite group?
An elite group of countries that will deal with each other and give preferential treatment and so on, just the way that the
So the
EU does.
EU.
Yeah. So,
He wants to make the EU
He wants
too.
to make a mini EU, but not necessarily with EU countries, just with countries that he thinks that would benefit this new and so he would be foolish not to go for us in the UK, and that's exactly what he's done. And of course, the Tories who voted to leave and have seen us get out of the Brexit deal and so on and so forth, are jumping up and down and saying, how can this man, yes, by all means, if he wants to say, can we please not pay any attention to Macron? That's one thing, but we really, the fact that somebody can tamper with our quote constitution is really getting up the nose of some people. I mentioned Dennis Waterman dying after 2 years. He got lung cancer. I think he was a pretty heavy smoker. There's a lady. Let's see, Caprice Burrell. I haven't a clue who Caprice Burrell is, but she's a tasty-looking lady. And what she says is, when I want to make love to my husband, I pay my sons to vanish out of the house. In other words,
I was wondering where that was going.
For a few hours.
Okay.
I thought that had gone out with the coal mines. No, if it's a case of hopping into bed, even albeit with my husband, as I actually don't want.
How old are our kids?
Well, looking at it, it looks as if they were probably about 6 or 7.
They're like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're not totally young.
Both of them are under 10 years old. Pay them to go where? Okay.
Apparently, what they have to do is to go down to the local park and footle around until such time Mummy is finished.
I can only see, with the Lewis Crown Court thing, I can only see things from yesterday. So I'm assuming today's stuff will be up tomorrow.
Right.
Which is unhelpful because I'm going to be here.
Not
I'm just going to pop. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Pop my head outside.
It may be that if perhaps you looked at the Argos, the newspaper in Brighton, if you looked at its front pages, that might give you a clue as to what's up today. Because it's obviously a big case, and it may not. I mean, we are a Crown Court, so we try cases from outside the area. I mean, it could be a murder trial from London or whatever. So we'll try that. Anyway, don't fret about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, we've actually gone over the Boris's Beergate bounce in the poll. Now, here's something. The public are terribly fickle. Today's hero is tomorrow's villain, and then vice versa. So Boris has taken a pounding because of what I call the Christmas icing cake thing. You know, how dare he eat cake?
That thing that was not that big of a deal. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't to me either.
No.
And I also took the same view of Keir Starmer's Beergate, but ours not to reason why. People have got all stirred up about it. And basically what's come down to is Keir Starmer has said, if they give me a ticket for having a beer and a curry, well, lockdown was in full mode, then I will actually quit as leader of the Labour Party. Which seems to
I hope they give him a ticket then. Because I don't think Boris Johnson's going to quit.
No, the interesting thing is though, Max, is what the commentators are saying is, yes, it's all very well for Keir Starmer to say I'll quit, and he could quit, and his deputy, the controversial lady, she said she'll quit. And then they asked the question is, but who is going to take over? Because one of the things about our democracy
Someone more
is
stupid.
yeah, that's very perceptive too. But the thing about our form of democracy is it is preferable to have a very strong opposition, so that they question everything that the government does, and therefore, if it comes under so much scrutiny, lots of bad things are taken out of the legislation before it's actually passed by Parliament. So it is a good question. If Keir Starmer goes and his lady, second in command, also goes, who moves in? I don't know who the bright sparks are in the Labour Party.
Well, there's not too many.
Right. Okay. So then we've got a problem. I mean, it's the same thing that Boris. If he went, who would replace him?
Well,
Now,
hang on. With America, I know they have a first in command, second in command, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and it goes on and on and on. Do we not have a third in command?
Well, yes, in theory. But where a new leader would come from is from the cabinet, generally speaking, unless you've got somebody who has appealed to all the backbenchers. Different parties have different rules. But generally speaking, I think that both the Labour Party and the Tories, the party actually votes who should be leader. Okay, so they are led by the nose by those people who are working in Westminster. But it is everybody is supposed to have a vote as to who the leader is. As is a card-carrying member,
Right.
and if they don't actually vote, then who knows who will be leader? You'd have, I mean, do you know that locally, the elections that we just took place last week, that we don't have because we're on a different 2-year cycle, is that only about 30-odd% of the electorate turn out and bother to vote. Now, they're the very first people that will yell and scream if things happen in this.
It's the people who don't vote.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. It is very true. Very true. But then on the other end of the scale is it's quite often there are, shall we say, privileged people who will be involved in the Conservative Party, the Tories, to keep us all sane while they're deciding who should be the beneficiary, if you like. So it's a bit of a difficult situation. It's easy to say he should go, and it hasn't happened very often in the past.
When was the last time that happened? Like someone quit?
Well, I'm not sure whether it was the last that happened, but sometime in the 1960s, I think it was, that there was a cabinet minister who actually had an affair with a high-class prostitute, Mandy Rice Davis. And he, whose name has just escaped me for a moment, he'll come back in a moment.
Was he the Prime Minister?
No, he wasn't.
Okay.
He was the War Minister. He was in charge of the Department of Defence.
Oh, actually, no. Thinking about the last person who quit out of embarrassment would have been the guy who had an affair in what was his? He quit last year. He was always on TV giving COVID stuff, giving the COVID briefs. What is his name? It was like his
fine
second
commentators
in command.
we are. We can't remember the names of these people, but yes, you're quite right. I mean, there have been those sort of resignations quite recently. and it will come back to us if we keep. I always say, if you keep talking, eventually the name pops back into your mind. All right. Now, you can't actually find out what's going on over the road. So why don't you play a little vignette, a little video, and then we can come back and talk some more, because it is 10:44, 10:45. We've only got 3/4 of an hour left of the program. Mind you, that's plenty of time to do things, but nonetheless.
Scenes in Sussex. What's that?
Sorry?
Scenes in Sussex.
That's just an intro.
Oh, okay.
You need to go down to.
These are all the intro bits. My bad.
Yeah. Go down to share.
Share again.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Now, one or two things there. There is an interview there with Nita, I think her name is, Nita Patterson, who runs the Star Gallery, and Stuart Dalby interviewed her. There is play the second one in. Yes, just for it's only a very short one, but you might find it amusing.
I've seen this, but we'll play it. Here we go. Okay, now here we go.
We're busy doing nothing, working the whole day through, trying to find lots of things not to do. We're busy going nowhere, isn't it just a crime? We'd like to be unhappy, but we never do have the time.
There we go. Beautiful singing. Beautiful singing from you there.
Beautiful things. Sorry.
Beautiful singing, I said.
Right.
What? Hang on. Are we muted? Oh no, we're not. Okay, never mind. Okay, what else are in the headlines? What else is in the
let's go through and try and basically because Keir Starmer has refused to give any sort of explanation of having a beer. It shows the difference in approach for the two leaders. What Boris said is, "Oh, I'm a naughty boy. Oh dear, I apologise. Oh dear, oh, I shouldn't have done it." Keir Starmer is saying, "I didn't do it," even though there is video and so on of him supping his beer.
Well, Boris Johnson did for a little bit say, "Oh, there was no party, but if there was, we followed all the restrictions." But again, there was no party.
Yeah. Eventually, he fell on his sword.
Yeah.
Now Keir Starmer has said, "No. You've got it all wrong. I didn't actually," and found all sorts of reasons, and still not to admit that he had broken the COVID rules. And it seems that the populace, the electorate, prefer Boris's, mea culpa. I'm terribly sorry. To Keir Starmer's is I ain't done nothing, Gov, because the popularity of the Labour Party has slumped, and now there is only one point that separates the two parties. I think that they were up to about 11 at one stage when Boris was really getting himself into a muck. So it just shows that, as they say, a week in politics is a long, long time. So poor old Ikea has lost his advantage. Now,
he was calling for Boris Johnson to resign when he was at the parties.
Yes, I mean,
even though he was at them themselves. Again, I'm very, very shocked that a politician would be a hypocrite. So shocking.
Now, here is something that I didn't notice earlier today. Is a crackdown on foreign spies. Suspected foreign spies will be banned from key sites, and a register of those who pose a threat to the country will be introduced under new laws.
It wasn't already? It wasn't already?
Well, one of the interesting things is that there was particularly a movement in Oxford in the 1930s where they were very sympathetic to the old Soviet Union because it was believed that Stalin had got this marvelous socialist structure where everybody was getting a little house and an apple tree and all the rest of it, only for it to be exposed later as in fact what he was doing is he was killing millions of people, of his own people, in the interior of the country. But the spies came out of this little group of Oxford people, and eventually they worked in the Foreign Office. The Queen's artist, who turned out to be a spy. I mean, they infiltrated themselves into all sorts of places. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a question of James Bond. It was just a question of people who are influential and managed to get themselves appointed to key posts. The latest issue, I think, is I interviewed the head of GCHQ.
What's that?
Well, I tell you when it was. It was last September, I think, because it was for the Speakers Festival, and the Speakers Festival is coming up in June.
I recognise the name of GCHQ, but what does it do?
GCHQ is the spy headquarters.
Ah, well,
yeah.
Okay.
General. I can't remember what the GC stands for.
So you interviewed James Bond?
I didn't interview James Bond. The point that this man made was, look, James Bond still exists, but he is nowhere near as important as you can just punch the red. Oh, there it's stopped now. James Bond really is getting less and less and less because much of this stuff is done on computers. Mm. And strangely enough, just last week, I don't know whether you noticed, but they found that spyware had been distributed in number 10. Somebody had managed to get spy equipment into number 10 so that all incoming and outgoing telephone calls and emails and so on could be monitored.
No, I didn't know that, but I'm absolutely not shocked at all.
It doesn't surprise you.
No, not at all. It doesn't surprise me.
Having said that, of course, Russian spies have been very aggressive. And there have been 3 or 4 deaths or near deaths where
there was that really famous one in 2017.
Yeah, the one in Stonehenge.
Yeah. Stonehenge.
Well, Wiltshire. It took place in Wiltshire.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello, how are you, Ollie?
Yeah, good. We're live right now.
Yeah,
no, it's all right. No,
you can
come on if you want.
We never throw anybody out. We had some lovely ladies from Norway here this morning who are looking around. They were going down to Rodmell this morning. We're having more and more people who drop in. So it's eventually you're going to have to. But Ollie is a splendid chap who is fighting certain social causes, but he's also a very good guitarist. And he is arranging for us, either he or his pals, so that we can have a little musical interlude on a couple of mornings here.
We need to get our audio sorted before we can do that, but I can try and figure that out at some point.
Maybe me and you hook up, have a jam and a meet, etc.
Yeah.
And then you can edit it and bring it back.
Cool. Yeah, I can do that.
There you go.
Awesome.
There you go. You see, this open door policy is nobody knows who is going to wander in through the front door. I mean, yesterday, you would have approved of this chap, Ollie, because he was from Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, which is normally associated with the Mormons, of course. But he manufactures some sort of magic ball which helps relax you and so on and so forth. And he's got a lady here who actually is an agent for him and sells them on his behalf. So he was over to take a look.
What does this magic ball actually do?
Well, it's supposed to calm you and ease your tension.
So it's like was it like a stress ball?
Well, no, I think that it's a metal ball because I think it apparently just plays some music as well. Okay. So I think that so the old sponge thing is not not of this one. But we are having all sorts of people wander in, and we had two good people. We had Melissa in New York, and
yeah, Melissa in New York called yesterday. Who was the other woman?
There was Jane Watts, Jane Watkins, right. Who is our lady in Hastings.
Okay.
So we had quite a variety yesterday. Anyway, back to here is suspected foreign spies will be banned from key sites, and a register of those who pose a threat to the country will be introduced under new laws. In other words, we are tightening up how to operate as a spy.
I think there's a good place for. There's actually quite a good place for potential spies. It's called prison.
The thing with spies is
I don't know why we aren't using that already. This seems ridiculous.
But the good spy, of course, and this is why I'm not sure about this legislation, is the good spy you would never know was a spy until either he's caught or decides to declare himself. There are so many sort of different ways of being a spy nowadays, and particularly if you don't need a Beretta under your arm. I suppose that the best way is to legislate against them. I'm not sure that it really helps, simply because
I'm sure now the legislation's in, the spies are going to be like, "Oh, I can't do this. This is illegal now." I'm sure they're just going to quit.
Probably.
It's just ridiculous. It's like, why was this not already a law? That's so weird to me.
But mostly, we don't know that people are spies until after they're dead. The really good ones I mean, I did know the original 007.
What?
Yeah, I knew the original 007.
You have to tell me the story. I've never heard this.
I belonged to a club in London, and I walked in one day, and a chap that I knew hailed me and said, "Oh, come and join these two gentlemen for a drink." And it had a very, very, and in fact, the original 007, became a friend. But there were two people. We had a lovely chat about
007 was sort of based off a real event, real person.
Yeah, not probably a combination of several people. I mean, I don't think there was a
single person.
But the first spy to give license to kill was I mean, I had a perfectly pleasant chat to them and so on and so forth, and the way they went. And then the chap that had introduced me grinned, and he said, "Well, in case you didn't know, you've been just talking to the original 007." And he said the gentleman sitting across from him, Gus, was the original M. So. And I got to know them, but he probably has not been replaced because that sort of spy is now going out.
Would he still be alive today?
Well, James Bond was very good at making sure that he stayed alive. Good morning. Are you here to?
We're here on official business.
Are you? Right. So we won't actually ask you to come on telly then. The James Bond character did exist, and but I don't think it has changed considerably now. Right. Okay.
And that's serious. You actually just happened to meet this guy. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's the way that you do. You wouldn't necessarily look out at things. Here are some of the things that, from pets to trains. What else was in the Queen's speech? A school bill cracks down on truancy and beefs up the powers of watchdogs and shakes up funding. Any comment on that?
Yeah, actually, our college has had a real crackdown on people not showing up. They've given warnings to all the people who weren't showing up enough that if they don't continue to show up, that they're going to get expelled from the college for just not showing up. And there was, surprisingly, quite a few people who don't turn up. But which is, I mean, it's Brighton. There's a lot of flaky people. But yeah, so
but presumably they paid fees. Have they to attend this college?
Yeah.
So they pay the fees and then just don't turn up.
Well, no, not fees. I mean, some would get paid to come here. I get bursary to come to college. I get bursary to get the train here today from my college.
Right.
But yeah, no, they just don't bother, which is weird to me. I've never understood how you can just not turn up and be okay with it.
Yeah.
I mean, the college isn't okay with it. That's why they're going to be expelling some people potentially. But
yeah, well, I mean, I can understand that if they're on the books, but you never see them. There's no point in keeping them on the books, because presumably eventually there'll be an audit to find out, if they're getting any government money, any government support.
Last year there was someone who turned up for the first day and then never turned up again and was still on the register at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And yeah, that
makes a bit of a nonsense of it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right. The transport bill provides the Great British Railways. It creates a body with powers to take control of the rail system. Now, I'm not quite sure whether that means if it's failing or in times of war or whatever. But anyway, we're going to get a supremo, as it were, for railways. Energy security bill paves the way for new low-carbon technologies and growing the consumer market for electric heat pumps. Stuart is a bit scathing about this.
What's his view?
Sorry?
What's he saying about it?
Well, basically, what he says is that they pull these things together. They lay out an agenda which is totally and utterly unrealistic. Is they say that they can do in 5 years what is actually going to take 15 to 25 years.
Kind of like the getting rid of all petrol-powered cars by 2030.
That's exactly the same.
I really hope that doesn't happen.
Well, I doubt it will.
No, I love
it's an unrealistic target.
France is 2025, I believe, for getting rid of electric cars. Getting rid of petrol-powered cars for only electric, which is that's only 3 years. Yeah, that's only 3 years from now.
Yeah,
It's not going to happen.
exactly. I don't think it is
It's
going
not
to
going to happen.
but even if there are penalties, is that people will start to appeal and say, we couldn't we couldn't fulfil these obligations.
No, there was a politician recently who, I can't remember his name, but he said if you're being affected by rising petrol prices, just buy an electric car. That was his advice. Just buy an electric car. Like, how out of touch do you have to be?
Energy security bill. Papers take the wide view. It involves things like the Davy lamp.
I don't know what that is.
You know what the Davy lamp is?
No.
Right. In the old days, in the coal mines, or any sort of mine for that matter, gases build up. So miners would go there, but a lot of these gases can't be seen. And the next thing you knew is they were poisoned. And,
like canaries.
Well, they used to take a canary.
Yeah.
And then there was a guy called Davy who was sponsored, strangely enough, by a man here who was known as Mad Jack Fuller.
Okay, yes, I know of Mad
Jack. Right.
Yeah.
Well, Mad Jack, he was known for sponsoring good works. He spent a lot of his fortune on trying to develop, not least of which was the Faraday cage, which led eventually to the development of television. But he sponsored Davy with the Davy's lamp. And Davy invented a lamp that would warn you about gases building up before the canary fell off its perch, as it were.
What would they do? Light a match?
The strange thing is that I think that used to be one of the ways is if it doesn't go bang, we're all right, chaps. The Renters Reform Bill seeks to abolish no-fault evictions, but also reforms the possession grounds for landlords of bad tenants. That looks like a sort of social change.
I'm not too sure about that. There's a lot that goes into being a landlord, and just saying you can't kick people out. I don't know about that. I have to think about that.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've heard about it.
Right. Well, that's one that you might actually do a little bit of chatting and find out for us.
Yeah.
What the scene is. Seafarers Remuneration Bill cracks down on ferry operators who do not pay national minimum wages by giving sports powers to suspend them. I think. Once again, not knowing too much about the maritime situation, but I think that quite often on board ships, you've got a crew that don't speak English.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, "Oh, that's dreadful," and so on. But the reason being is that they'll work for half the price of people who are native English speakers. And I suppose this is that is to stop that practice, to protect British workers or British owners. The Public Order Bill cracks down on guerrilla protesters with harsher sentences.
Guerrilla protesters? Did that say guerrilla?
Yes.
Okay.
It says guerrilla protesters. It's GUERR, not GORRI.
I know, not the animal, obviously.
Yeah, not the animal. And that public order bill with it'll be harsher penalties about those people who glue themselves to the road.
Right, that's what it's referring to. Okay, I don't understand why. God, well, it's so ridiculous gluing yourself to the road.
It's now 11:08. Would you believe? And we're only less than 20 minutes from the end of the program. So let's quickly just run through the other things here. Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Bill seeks to crack down on illicit finance with powers to seize crypto assets quicker. So I suppose that really is an anti-fraud type operation.
Wait. Sorry, say that again.
Sorry?
Can you read that again?
Yes,
I
it's
drifted off for a
the
second.
Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Bill. And what it says is it wants to crack down on illicit finance. I mean,
To do with cryptocurrency.
probably, yeah. Cryptocurrency, I think, is the main one. But also some of these payday loan things. You know, you're short today on a Monday. I will lend you £100 until tomorrow, but you'll pay me back 125.
Yeah, what was it? Like they got shut down by the government. It was like Amiga loans.
Yes.
They always had that annoying orange on the adverts on TV, singing or whatever. And it turned out it was like 1,000% interest or something.
Yes. Well, I mean, those sort of things they need to keep an eye on. Conversion therapy bill bans attempts to change sexual or orientation, but not generally identities.
Not.
So once again, I think it's
People are being a bit confused with that recently, banning conversion therapy. They are saying conversion therapy is saying to a gay person and trying to turn them straight. That's not true. That's not what goes on in this country. That is illegal to force someone into that. What they're calling conversion therapy is making trans people go to psychiatrists first before they transition, to make sure they are able to make this decision and they're fully understanding and capable of what they're doing, because it is a life-changing event. You can't go, once you transition into your gender, you cannot go back on it. So they're saying that the psychiatry is conversion therapy, which is not true.
right.
So that's a very misleading headlines I keep seeing.
Yeah. So that's something that then we should take a look at over the next as it goes through Parliament. We'll keep an eye on that one because you think that is controversial. Yeah.
No, I think it's completely not controversial. I think they're making a big deal out of nothing.
Well, all right. That it is equally as important that we watch it then. Boycotts, divestment, and sanctions bill prevents councils from boycotting a country's goods.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that councils did boycott a country's goods.
I think that should be kind of allowed. I think that we should boycott China because of what they do and how unethical they are. Why should we not be allowed to boycott? I guess it's the government boycotting, but still, even then, I think there are countries worth boycotting. Do you know? I mean, I don't think that's a very controversial thing to say, that China isn't good.
Yeah. Okay. Independent football regulator protect clubs' financial sustainability and make sure stewards are fit to practice. Mean anything to you?
No, I don't know anything about football.
Nor me, really. I suppose that it is common sense that they have stewards at the grounds for crowd control and that sort of thing. And of course, it was the stewards that came in for a lot of criticism with the Sheffield thing, Hillsborough.
Oh God, was that where a bunch of people got crushed?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
When was that? That wasn't too long ago, was it?
Well, it was a good 10 years ago, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's taken that long
I think
for
that
inquiries and so on.
Really? I thought that was like sort of when my mum was a teenager, so like the late 80s, early 90s.
Well, it may be, but I mean, if you actually say the late 80s, early 90s, you're talking about 20 years ago.
30 years ago.
No, 30.
Yeah.
Right, and finally, Animal Welfare Bill introduces new welfare standards and cracks down on puppy smuggling. One of the things that actually came out in the lockdown is how there were dog rustlers, people stealing animals and then putting them up for resale because there was a big surge in demand.
Yeah, we were told about that because we had puppies during lockdown. At one point we had 5 dogs, which was fun. We had 3 puppies and the 2 parents, and we were concerned about things like that happening. So now it's being cracked down on. Did that say?
Well, I suppose so.
It's about time.
Yeah,
Jeez.
it's that in essence is the Queen's speech. Now that we are into 11:14, we've got just 15 minutes left. Why don't you play us another little video just to take the edge off us talking and give us a moment where
we play the Lewis documentary on this one, or was that the previous
we played that earlier in the day? You could play this on this hour. Your little documentary, yes. So bring it up.
I'm going to play my little documentary I made. I mean, it's not. I mean, it was my first attempt. For a first attempt, it was good, but I don't know. There's a lot of things I could have done better.
Well, I mean, you know, you should know, folks, that Max is only 17, isn't it?
18.
18 now, and that you know he's new to the industry, and he did a very creditable job with this. He's being self-critical. It is no bad thing. But he mustn't be too self-critical because for his age and his background in this industry, he did a nice little job. And this was his view of Lewis.
I know what I can do better for next time. You'll hear in a second I sound very robotic, reading a script off, kind of like...
there are a hell of a lot of people that I
kind of like when Stuart,
worse, believe me.
When Stuart reads his script, sounds robotic like I do.
Right, where you go?
All right. This is Hidden in Plain Sight, and this was my first documentary I've made. Today, I'm in a small town called Lewis, in the south of England, just a few miles away from Brighton. I will be taking a walk through Lewis and some of the historical sites, which date back over 1,000 years in this show, Hidden in Plain Sight. One of the best things to do in Lewis is explore the streets, as there is lots of historic Twittons to explore and look through. The high street is packed with small and independent shops, and there are plenty of pubs and restaurants to choose from. Lewis Castle was built just after the Norman Conquest in 1066. The construction of the castle was started in 1068 and only took 2 years to complete. A war broke out below Lewis Castle, a war between Simon de Montfort, Earl of Leicester, and Henry III in 1264. Lewis is well known for its history, and one of the historical landmarks is a place called the White Hart Hotel. Whilst not being so obvious at first sight, it has a significant role to play in American history. Thomas Payne was an English-born American political activist, philosopher, and revolutionary. He authored books called Common Sense in 1776 and The American Crises in 1776 to 1783, two of the most influential books in American history, and had a major part to play in the start of the American Revolution. And it helped inspire the Americans in 1776 to declare independence from Great Britain. Thomas Paine also wrote a book called The Rights of Man, which is referred to as a cornerstone to modern-day democracy. And it all started in the small town of Lewis, in a room in the White Hart Hotel. But Lewes is not just known for its history, it's also known for its natural beauty. In the Greater Lewes area, there are some beautiful rolling hills and hiking trails that you can just walk through for miles, and whilst on these trails you can truly appreciate the beauty of the English countryside. The River Ouse is one of the longest rivers in the country and goes through Lewes. It's a beautiful sight to see and is home to many different species of fish. Lewes has so many different trails to choose from. It can take you all through the town, fields and hills. I would personally recommend Down Nature Reserve and the Lewes Downs, as you can stand atop of the hills and see for miles, which is a sight to behold and one you don't get to see that often. You've been watching Mirador TV, and this show, Hidden in Plain Sight by Max Hurd. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day. We're unmuted now. We were on mute.
Right, we're able to, you can hear us now.
Yes.
I'm not sure that was a benefit or not, but it is now 11:24. We are Mirador Television, a totally unstructured TV service out of Lewes, the White Hart Hotel in East Sussex in the UK. We know that we get to all sorts of people in different parts of the world. And as a consequence, we try hard to be local but not parochial in the things that we cover. And we also like to give the alternative view. So when we were looking at the Queen's speech today, those were our own views, no official views, although we do take account of those experts who make sure that they are giving a different viewpoint based on their qualifications and their experience and what they do for a living. We, on the other hand, do the same thing, but mostly it's opinion and a look, and that's quite valid too, because that's how most of us actually look things up. All right, tell us what you've got in mind for your show next week, Max.
Well, this weekend I'm going to be filming. I'm going to be going to Brighton to watch the London to Brighton mini run. Going to do a little episode on that because it's a passion of mine, and I'll be less robotic than I was in the documentary you just watched. And that should be going out. I'm not sure about next week, but maybe the week after. I'll research some topics to talk about for next week. Current stories, whatever goes on from here to next week, is what I'll be talking about.
Right, and now we are building up our co-hosts. This week we've had Suzanne Mouchot, we've had Jane Watkins, we've had Melissa Conti, we've had we should have had Stuart Dolby this morning, except that the link went wrong with London. Tomorrow morning we'll have Andrew Sloan, as usual, our barber. So we're getting a whole broad range of views and contributors, and it is actually making for interesting programs now. But on top of which, we are broadcasting from the bar in the White Hart Hotel, a hotel that's a good 500 years old, and has seen many important people, many important decisions, many important historical events take place. And it is a good feeling to be in that sort of environment when you're talking about what's happening in modern day. So we also have got the odd expert who is going to come in to chat about things. We've got somebody who is from the fundraisers here in Lewis with the Ukraine.
Ukraine.
Yeah. And there's a gentleman who just went out, and I just shouted after him, but he didn't hear me. When are you going to come on? Who is the kingpin in the food bank situation, and tries very hard to promote it and make sure that people are aware, because he has show people. And we actually just do simply pick up people, particularly those who come in very early in the morning, because they don't feel anywhere near as conscious as those later in the day. And all in all, it's been a very good week, and we hope to capitalize on that next week and make sure that we've got a nice wide variety of interests, of views, of stories, and bits and pieces. And it is now 11:29, and it is time for us to say toodle pip for today. Thank you for being with us. Is Max Hurd, who is my co-host and actually has done most of the hosting, and the odd person who has been on video or on programs from the past. That's it for now. We will say cheerio and see you tomorrow.